Okay. I guess I'll start right now, and people can join as we speak. Um, so welcome back to the seventh class or seventh lesson of this a lesson course, and today will be the second to last one. In the next two classes, we will be covering another game made with arcade, and it will be the classic Hungerfish. So, uh, well, there's no specific reason I chose it. I thought it would be a enhancement to what we have learned in the past. Uh, in the past, with uh, digging deeper into arcade, as well as um, reviewing subjects we have learned before. So without further ado, also, I will be writing in my local editor, but feel free to just use Replit. Um, I went over this issue. I've went over this issue before, so yeah, I'm not gonna mention it more. All right. Before we actually start the game, like writing, I guess. Let me just close all this. Let's take a look at, I guess, what is the expected final result. So it will be a game where you can. That was not expected. Um, so it will be a game with controls of moving up, down, left, and right. You will be able to eat fish that are smarter than you, and there are like fishes randomly spawn uh, in the game, and you will be able to pause the game. That heart is not supposed to be moving, but you can pause the game. The game can end, and you can restart the game. So it's going to be a little bit more function than the well, it's going to have a little more function than the change lanes, but the core ideas are still there. So without further ado, let's first, well, as always, by creating a game, we would first by creating a simple window of the game. So here, actually, yeah, let's just skip that step. It's not the most necessary part. Here is the first piece of code. I'll be getting the paste bin ready. So I guess take a look at the code first. I'll go over it a little after. Okay, so let's take a look at the basics, I suppose. It's not much, if you recall 3 lessons ago, it's not much different from that one. We still just have the window with a few constants that are set to change, set to modify, well, a few constants to define the size of the window and the title of the window. Not much is done here. We have a setup function that we can use to initialize the game. There are reasons why we aren't using the native init, and I will be covering it maybe next class. We probably won't cover it today, but there's a specific reason why I would want to use create a custom setup function to set the background images, to create characters, players, and stuff like that. We have our on draw that arcade provided to us. We are just simply drawing the background image, nothing else. Nothing on updates yet because this is a static background for now, and it's just running just taking a look at it. Not much stuff is going on, but we do have the window size, uh, the wanted window size, the background image as. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't put the resource. 1 second. Yeah. We'll be using I'll put it in like now, but uh I'll finish what I just started. We have the title, we have a background image, the size we want, and that will be the first step. So
Oh,
let
I'm
me
late. Did I miss anything?
not much. I'll post the link to the first step again. We just started, so um
This is all you did, just this link?
yeah, I'll be sending the uh
You don't need to send a file. I can get it in REPL.
the language will still be Python. We won't be covering anything other than Python. I'll put it on. Oh, sorry. I'll put it on Replit as well. I'll put it on GitHub for those who are using. Uh, for those who are using Replit, because.
What is that file for?
That file is for the resources that we'll be using today.
Can I just make a new REPL and copy everything in the link you send? How about that?
Sure, but you would have to.
I'll just select all like in the link you send, copy, paste it into a new REPL.
But you would be needing some extra uh, stuff, like the resources that we'll be using. So you might need to. I'll put the second page of the core of the code on, and feel free to read over it and see if you can make sense of anything. Here it is.
Is it how many files even?
There will be well, I'll provide you with a GitHub link that you'll be using to import all the resources, and you will create your own changelines. Not changelines, hungryfish. .py.
Oh, I will not be here next week, so
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll send you. I'll send out all the resources I have after that class, anyways. So don't worry too much about it.
will we be doing much next week? Because I'm not going to be here.
Next week we will finalize what we have. What we will like. What we won't be covering today. Uh,
So it's fine if I'm not here next week.
it won't be too much of a deal. It won't be a big deal.
And I will not attend next week. How about that?
Sure. If you can't make it, that's completely fine.
you please show me what you've done so far and let me share my screen because now I'm confused. I just copy, but I'm not sure what's next.
Yeah, sorry. It's taking me 1 minute to or a minute to change, to update the resources that will be needed for um this project, I guess, and I'm putting it in right now. Okay. Here will be the GitHub file link that will have all the resources provided. Recall that 2 weeks ago we went over how to import a GitHub project as well as how you would be running it in Replit. I'll go over it. I'll go over it again if anyone is having any trouble. But so for those who are using a local editor, just use the zip file I provided, or is it a why? It's a compressed file. If you want to, you can also just go into that link and just download all the images to your folder. That'll also work. Yes, Anthony.
I have no idea what to do.
Okay.
It's like too much, I would say. Like I'm completely lost.
Okay. Let me log into Replit and I'll show you. I'll show you.
I want to see what you've done like from 4 o'clock to now, what we've done so far.
Yeah, so go into GitHub, choose import from Replit, copy the link that I sent in the chat.
Hold on, please. I'm trying to do that now.
And you would click import from GitHub.
Okay, I'm on repo. It's just logged in, so I import from a GitHub. Okay, yeah. So I just import I click on code and import that link.
Yeah. Well, copy the link and paste it in.
Copy and paste it.
Into the field of the.
It says cloning, like I did copy and paste it.
Yeah. Then just wait for it to finish running.
Okay, and then what about like the code, like the link you sent earlier?
That code, you would be using it to create a Python file called well, anything, but I say hungryfish.py. It will be better if you create a folder called resource, but it's fine if you just leave it like this.
I'll just leave it like this, but
then there will be a small modification to the code I'll be presenting. It's simple as removing some text file, untext. So don't worry too much about it. I'll point it out to you when we get to it, I suppose.
okay, so I got that code. I got the code for Replit. And then what about any of the other files? Like, can you put code in them?
These files are the resource files that we will be using throughout the game.
No code in them yet.
You can't put any code in this.
But I have a question. I still don't understand one thing.
Go ahead.
The view paste 5BT, that code, the screen width. Okay, what is that for? Like, we have to copy that.
You mean the paste, like the paste bin file, paste file
Yeah,
I sent?
the
So the
5BTA.
copy this file. Well,
Yeah.
this is the base file that we'll be working with. So
And
go
then what do I
to
paste that?
add a file called I don't know, hungryfish.py. Then paste it in.
Okay. And then paste it in.
Mhm.
Hungryfish.py. Hold on. Because I need to know. This is a lot of things to do. Okay, I got that. And then what else did you do from 4 o'clock till now?
That's about it. Well, I talked about what this piece of code does, which is simple as for anyone who, sorry, that was, yeah, I'll continue what I just said. This is basically the template file that all arcade games are going to be based off of. So not really much went on, but for anyone who wants to get a updated file of the, want to get the updates faster, perhaps just go into my replit and take a look at what I have and just copy and paste it to your own. That would work.
One more thing, please.
Go ahead.
Okay, so seems like I got. Do you have like a package file? I don't have a package file.
The package file, yeah, don't worry about this. That was not meant to happen. Remember to pip install arcade because apparently replit hates it. So,
Then I won't care about it.
well, you have to install pip. You have to install arcade though.
And just install pip arcade if I understand right, and not worry about the package file, right?
Yeah. Oh well,
Okay.
I spelled arcade wrong here, but you get the point.
So because I noticed on your replit, it says there's a package file called Pi Projects. Like I do not understand what that means.
Just delete it. That was not meant to be there.
Okay. Because that's the only other thing I've noticed.
Mm. All right. Let's see. Let me just refresh my mind of what just happened. So we created a base window with the title Hungry Fish, 900 pixels wide, 600 pixels tall, with a background of the undersea, with the ocean, I guess. So now let's add in something a bit more, perhaps the players. So let me find a way to fit everything in here. Inside of these lines are the new lines of code that we added in. It's a way to just, it doesn't affect the code because they are just comments, but it adds, for me as an organization, and it will be easier for you to see what just went on, I guess. So no need to copy it right now. I'll paste it in afterwards. Um, for people who are using Replit and to use the GitHub link, remove whenever you see resource slash. This means that you're telling the Python code to look into a folder called resource and look for the whatever file it is. So since recall that in here, we do not have a folder. So you have two options: either add a folder called resource and just stick all the files, all the image files into the resource folder, or you could just remove this whenever you see it and especially in the code that I sent out, just remove it, and it would just work proper. It would work as it should. Yeah. And taking a look at the code, I'll put it in Replit, and I'll put it in paste. Here is the updated link. So let's go over what we have in here. As you can see, I would have like this step of the code, like what it does on top of here. So we're adding a player sprite, well, just like the character that you control into the game. It's the same thing as the changelings project we have done. It's simply just creating a class. Remember the inheritance we talked about last class? Sprite is a class in arcade, and we are simply inheriting that and creating our own class. So player will be a type of sprite. Sprite is just an arcade way of saying characters or anything like that. And so we are running sorry. We are modifying the location of this player character sprite, depending on what you want to call it. I'll call it sprite just because arcade calls it that way. We have self.center x, which would define the x coordinate of this character, and it will be the center of the character. So we have half of the screen width, half of the screen height to make sure that the character sprite will be in the middle of the screen. Of course, just creating a class doesn't do anything. We would need to actually create this player sprite in our window. And this is done with the command, with the line of code self.player equals player resource with the image file that we want to put in inside of the player, inside as a parameter that we pass in. Self.player is just a variable to store the sprite. After creating the player, we also need to show it on screen. And that is done with self.player.draw in the onDraw function. In the onDraw function, you would, self.player.draw would draw the player onto the screen. So showing it in action. Here it is on the screen. You still can't move it because we haven't implemented code for us to move it yet. But now it's showing on the screen. Also feel free to ask me anything when we are going over this, and yeah. All right. How should I put this? It's a little long. Here. I'll show the top portion for now. No, I'll show the bottom portion and take a look at this piece of code for now. Well, first, and I'll go over this part, and then we'll look at this top part. As per usual, I'll be pasting in the file and put it in chat for you to take a look at. All right, both the replit and the B paste should be updated.
What do you mean
Alright.
paste?
Oh, that's it's just the link I sent in the chat with the code inside.
And what do you mean by REPL? Because I'm still confused.
In Reply, there's a link with to the project, to the Python file, and if you want to, you can access it here, or you can just access it in paste. I have no idea why it decided to put it in Replit, but yeah. All right, I think that was a solid minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. I'm not sure. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this part first. So what do we have here? Well, looking up, you see that we are defining two functions in the class hungryfish, which is the main window. Um, taking a look at the file name on key press. Oh, it's a arcade. Or you would realize, oh, it's an arcade function that they pre-wrote. And we're just modifying the function. And well, by reading the name, you should probably know what it does. So it detects, or it's a function that will be called when some key on your keyboard is pressed by the user. This is just a few parameters that are passed in. This you don't need to worry about it. This is basically telling the function what type of parameter should be passed into this parameter, what type of parameter it should be passed into this method. In this case, both the symbol and the modifiers are integers. Well, Arcade defined them as integers. So we're, it's just adding some, well, I guess it's more of a standard one in Arcade. So no need to worry about it. The code would just run fine without it. So this would also just run, but okay, let's take a look inside of the on key press. So this will happen when a key is pressed. Okay, what do we have here? If symbol is arcade.key.up, so the up, down, left, and right are the arrow keys on your keyboard. So symbol represents the like the key that is pressed. Modifiers are like Shift, Control, Alt, like keys, fin function like Fn, or Windows key or Command key in Windows in Mac. But symbols are what we're going to be focusing on. So if the key pressed is up, then we change the players change Y to movement speed. So as you can see, movement speed is a constant. That means that we have it defined up here. Movement speed is 4, which means that it's going to be moving 4 pixels at a time. So like every tick frame or every update, should I say, because it's change Y, and change Y is linked to the updates of the program. So basically this, and you'll see symbol, if it's down, then make it negative, so move backwards. If it's left, then make the X. Well, we have change Y for up and down, because recall that in the coordinate system, Y is in charge of like vertically, and X is in charge of horizontal. So if we want to move up and down, we will be changing its Y coordinate. If we want to move it left or right, we will be changing the X coordinate. If you want to move left, you would make the X coordinate smaller and smaller. If you want to go right, you will make the X coordinate larger and larger, and same thing for the Y coordinate. Then we have onKey release. It's another arcade function that they pre-wrote, and well, looking at the name, you should probably guessed it. You probably guessed it. This will be called when a key is released. So we have a press and we have a release. Same thing goes here. In the parameters, this is just adding specifications to what the parameters are. Don't need to worry about it. But we're checking if the key released is up or down. That means that we were changing the y coordinate, and now if it's released, we should make the change amount to 0 again, so that the fish won't be continuously moving upward. However, if it's moving left or right, we will be modifying the change x to 0. So making it stop, make it stop moving horizontally. Well, you might be, well, I don't know if you will be asking, but you might be asking, hey Ethan, why don't you just make it so that the player's center x is like movement speed, like added by movement speed? Well, this I intentionally didn't use that because if I do decide to use just changing its coordinates by myself, you would soon find an issue that the character only moves once after each key press. So because this function is only called when the key is pressed down, so it's only called once. If you want to move it like continuously, you would have to like spam that certain single key. I'll show you when we are done with the other parts, I suppose. Sure. I'll show you right now, I guess. The other parts can be explained separately. So as you can see, the fish now moves. And I'm just pressing down left and it's continuously moving left. So however, if we let's say modify the code a little, center Y, what would this happen? I'm just gonna press left. Oh wait, did I change? Yeah, I changed the Y. So I'm gonna press up and I'm gonna hold it. Oh, it's not moving. So as you can see, on key press is only called once. So if you want to move it continuously, you have to spam the up key, which is not the best user experience, and hence why I decided to use change Y in the on key press. Okay, now let's take a look at this part of the code. So this part of code is sort of a refining the movements of the player, so making sure that the player can never move out of the screen. And this is done by creating our own update function, which would be called every single update. We will be, well, everything that's in the sprite everything that will be in the sprite class will also be called by using the super. Remember from last week we learned that super is just a way to basically run whatever the function that's in the parent class, and then whatever is after this is our custom code. So this makes sure that we both have the functionality of the parent class, also, but we can also add in some code of our own, and we don't have to rewrite the entire update class of functionality. So let's take a look at this. I think this should be self-explanatory, most of it. So if the if self.left is a returns a coordinate, or it stores a coordinate, so it's the leftmost, like where the fish where the character is on the leftmost. So in the code, so like self.left will be a coordinate along this, will be a y coordinate along this line, so like the left of the character. And if this is less than 0, that means that it's out of the screen, and we'll just set it to 0 to make sure that it would only hit the boundary but never move past it. As you can see, when it is at 0, it stops. So in the window, it looks like that the fish stopped at the border, or the window border. For right, for right, it's the same thing. If self.right is greater than window on the screen width, that means that it's beyond it's going past the border, and we would just set it back to the screen width to make sure that it always only to make sure that it hits the window but never go beyond it. Same thing goes for bottom and top. I'm not going to explain too much about it. It's the same thing for left and right, but showing it in action. As you can see, it hits the top but stops. It goes to the bottom. It hits the bottom, but it doesn't go beyond the bottom. This also works in the corners. So yeah, it works. Well, since we have our own update function now, we should probably actually update our players. So this is done by in the onUpdate function of the window. Yes, sorry, Sophie, let me finish this one last sentence and I'll get to you. So in onUpdate, we are going to update the player by using the update function that we wrote ourselves, and that's why the player actually moves. If we don't have this line of code, the player will just be stuck. As you can see, I'm pressing the keys, but it doesn't move because the screen is never, the player is never actually updated. So these modifications we have done to the player never actually took place. Yes, Sophie. Or was it Sophia? Sorry.
Okay, can you put this in like the REPL.8?
Oh, I think it is in Repl.
I mean like the new version.
Sure. It's in there.
Okay.
I'll just send the code. I'll send the link one more time, just to the paste, and you'll have the 1B version. All right. Let's continue. So right now the game is bare bones. We can't really say it's a game because it's not really fun. But before we actually add in like some fish to the game, there's one small issue, if anyone notices, just in the movements of the fish. Can anyone perhaps give an idea or like want to give it a try of what's not as refined of a like what is not as good as it should be? Okay. Yeah, that's totally fine. So let's take a look at the movements from left to right. Does this seem weird when the fish is moving right yet it's swimming backwards? So this is actually we can actually fix this with with the tools Arcade provided. So let's try and make the fish turn around when it actually move. Like let's make the fish look into the direction it swims. All right. Oh, I forgot to add in this bit. Let me check which one is more important. Okay, let's take a look at this first. As usual, I'll be putting this in the paste bin. Well, it's not paste bin, but I'll call it paste bin. Here is it in the chat. Take I guess. I'll just explain it. This is more of a arcade thing, so it's not really just call it logistic. So we let's ignore this constant for now. Let's take a look at the bottom, like this line of code first. What do we have here? Self.append texture arcade.load texture a image then mirrored equals true. What does this mean? So just a game can't just have one like one appearance of the character. So what we have here is we are adding a texture to the player. So think of textures as basically let me I'll show you with the real example. So as you can see, this will be the first first texture of the fish, which is looking left. However, if I press right, as you can see, the fish turned around. So this is the second texture of the fish. So a fish, a sprite or a character can have multiple textures, but in this case, we only need two because we only need two. So knowing what this kind of do, let's like break apart the code and look at each part. So we have arcade.load texture. So given by the I guess hinted by the name, this is a function for us to load the image as a texture file that's as a texture that can be used by arcade. So obviously we would need to provide these the texture of the file. In this case, we're using the same file, but we pay attention to this second parameter, mirrored equals true. So what does this mean? Well, hinted by the variable name, mirrored is it's basically asking you, do you want to mirror this image? So do you want to flip it like horizontally? Vertically, or is it horizontal? Well, along the horizontal vertical line. So, and then we can just add this newly loaded texture into the textures of the fish. So this line of code basically adds a new texture to a new appearance to the fish we control. Okay. So just by adding it doesn't actually tell the code when to use it. So let's take a look at this. Since we'll be only having two textures, we can just you can treat the textures as a list. So it's stored as a list in some sense. So it's the index starts at 0 and goes on to length -1. So since we only have two textures, you can just define it like this. The first texture we have is looking left. The second texture we have is looking right. So we could just use a constant to define what is left and what is right. So we index 0. So the first image of the fish is going to be left, like looking left. So we have the left constant. The second image will be looking right. So that's why we have right constant. So we actually modify the player's texture by using dot set texture. So this would only be needed when we are moving left or right. That's why we will be putting it in the on key press and in the if key equals left branch. What this does is we will set the texture to the left, and if it's and same thing for right. If it's moving right, we will set the texture to look to the fish that's looking to the right. Simple code, but really adds, I guess, make the program look more refined, I guess. So now, as you can see, if we press left, we will be setting the texture to left. If we press right, we will set the texture to right. There's a reason why we are defining constants instead of just putting in 0 and 1. And I don't know if we can cover this later today, but we will be covering it next week if we don't. Okay. So since we have just created our fish, it's not really a game right now because there are no enemies. So let's make it a game and create some enemies. This will be done. Let me find a good angle of this. Sure, let's put it here. I'll as usual, I'll be putting in the paste. I'll give like, I don't know, like 20 seconds to take a look at the what it does. Most of the code should be self-explanatory, but if it doesn't make sense, be sure to I'll be explaining it. Okay. By creating an enemy, we would need a class. So, well, just like how we did in the players, let's create a class called enemy. In enemy, not much is done right now. All we need is to have the fish spawn in a random location between, like inside the window. So we'll set the x coordinate to a random integer between 0 and 600, or the screen width, or 0 and the screen height for the y coordinate. Obviously, we need to pass in the fish to actually create the class. So in the resource folders, I provided a few types of fish: the blue fish, green fish, what else? Purple, red, and yellow. Yes, Sophie.
Okay, so I tried the code in my REPL and like all I've got is like a black screen.
Is there any error messages that popped up?
Now it's a gray screen. I don't have any messages or.
Are you using Replit?
Yep.
All right, let me take a look. I'll run it on this to make sure.
I want to go with the TA in doing the break into breakout room to make sure I have everything, because I do not understand any of this.
I'll create a breakout room. Sign. Are you gonna go with Alex?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, I will not be here next week, so that's fine.
Yeah. Here, I'll just options. All right. Please only Alex and he should be joining. Bowen, I sent the hungryfish.py in the chat multiple times, so go ahead and look at the latest bpaste link, and you should have it in there. Anthony, the room is open, so feel free to join.
Okay, still need help. It doesn't work.
So who's that
Go
talking?
to the
Sophie?
breakout room too.
Okay. Well, Sophie, as you can, do you have the error message on the bottom saying that? Oh, this shouldn't happen because.
Yeah, it says that like they couldn't load the big file called like new scene.
That's peculiar. Do you have the? So did you remove? Did you do like as I said before? Remove the resource. Like remove the resource slash in front of the files.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I think that's the issue.
Mhm.
Sorry, where was I? Let me catch my thought train. We want here. We are here.
Actually,
Okay.
I did that.
So did you do it for every single image?
Just a second, let me see.
Copy the file I have currently in my replit and check if it works for you. And whilst Sophie's working on that, let's take a look at what we have here. As I said before, we are creating a class with enemy, called enemy, and we'll be passing in a image file, image link, or image file to the class.
Excuse me?
Well, since we have multiple fishes, well, I'm gonna call it fishes. It's not the best. Since there are multiple colors of fish, so let's create a list of the fish sprites, and let's just call it self.fishes. And then we would need a enemy list to store all the newly created enemies. We'll be using the self.sprite arcade.sprite list for storage purpose and for later on when we are removing them or detecting collisions between the character and these enemies. This will come in very handy. Yes, those be.
Okay. Okay, so you have like over 74 like lines in your acting, but like when I load your Hungry Fish project, like you only have like 51 lines. Load it again and again.
Could you send me a copy of your file or perhaps your replit link or anything?
Okay, I'll invite you to my reference.
Okay. How about this? Listen, like, pay it, like, I guess, listen to this explanation first, and then I'll work it out when we are examining the next piece. So, I guess follow along for now, and I'll be sure to take a look. So, since we don't have really a good way of spawning them, so let's just spawn them with a for loop, and let's just create 5 of them. So a better way of doing this is creating a function that specifically designed to create enemies. So we have it here. So this piece of code might look pretty complicated. There's multiple parentheses, multiple parameters passed in. So let me break it up for you. Is he gonna give me a hint? Okay. So here, this might look a little more simple. So first, we're choosing which appearance our enemy will be. And that will be done with a random dot choice that randomly selects one of these options as the resource or as the image. Then we'll be creating our enemy with the enemy by using the enemy class and passing in the enemy image. After that, we need a way to manage these enemies. So we will be putting them into a self.enemy list that would, so we can modify them and organize them as a list. So, and that will be done with $append. After that, we are done creating the enemies, but remember, as usual, Arcade forces you to draw them before they can be shown on screen. So that's why we have self.enemy list.draw. And by running that, we can see that different types of fishes are spawned, and there are 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's done and working. If we run it multiple times, we will see that they spawn at random locations and are random fishes. So that's that for the basic enemy creation. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at how can we optimize it a little bit better. Because as a normal game, we obviously can't just have it just randomly spawn on the screen. So we would need something. So we would need them to be spawned outside the windows and let them like swim in. So let's take a look at this code. I'll be taking a look at Sophie's replit. All right, I forgot, but I'll put it in I'll create a new paste with the file and you can check it out in the chat. All right, yeah, let's take a break right now and we will go over some of the stuff we need after 10 minutes, I suppose. It's 5 o'clock PDT. Like, I don't know what's over there in China or somewhere else, but let's come back at whatever o'clock, whatever past 10, 10 past whatever the time it is right now. So I'll see you in 10 minutes.
Can I show my screen?
All right, it's 5:10, so I guess come back and we will talk about the code we saw like 10-15 minutes ago. Okay. All right, let's start taking a look at it. Where should we begin? Ooh, okay, not much. So only these two places are seen. So well, this place is just software update, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. So let's focus on this location randomization thing first. So we want to have the fish spawning on outside the screen and swim in, right? So we have two choices, either to have it spawn on the left or to have it spawn on the right. Well, we want that process to be randomized. So what should we do? Well, it would make sense to choose a random number between that's either -1 or a 1. The reason why it's a -1 or a 1 is because we can use this later on in our code without with some and we can make our code shorter. So it will be -1 if it's on the left, on the right. So if it's -1, the center X of this enemy will be on the right side of the screen. So outside of the 60 pixels outside of the screen. If otherwise, if it's on the left, if it's a 1, if side equals 1, that means that it's spawning on the left, and it will be 60 pixels left to the screen. And we will set the center Y to a random integer between 0 and the self.height. There isn't really any restrictions, so we can just spawn in at a random location. Okay, here comes the moving part. So as I said before, let's have it moving to a let's have it to be either -1 or 1. This is because then we can just simply use side times 4. So 4 is the speed of the fish that are moving. Side is which side they are on. So if they are on the right side, that means they need to move left, which means that well, since right is -1, the X is getting smaller and smaller, meaning they're moving left, from right to left. However, if they are on the left side and side equals 1, that means they're moving to the right side, and hence that their change X value will be 4, meaning that they will be constantly moving to the right. That's the basic sense of the code. We have, well, as usual, we have our on update to change the location, to update the enemies. We are using enemy list to update, so we don't have to update each of the enemies like on our own. We can just update the entire sprite list and they will do it for us. As you can see, the fishes are moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 on the left, 2, 3 on the right. Again, this is a 3 on the right, a 3 on the left, 2 on the right. As you can see, they are randomized. The locations are changing, the fishes are changing, they're moving, but we still run into the issue of fishes swimming backwards. How can we fix that? Here, comes the solution that we have. Comes the solution that we used in the previous, in our character class. Take a look at this. I'll put it in chat and we'll move on from there. Okay, this code isn't very hard. It's basically the exact same thing as the fish, as our character player. I mean, it's the same thing, just a little different. Okay. Now let's take a look. What is different in here? Yeah, I'll before we mention this, I guess something that would probably make a lot more sense when we are creating the fish is replacing this with the image that we pass in, the parameter we pass in. This is because that if we do ever decide to change the fish, the player fish image, we won't have two different kinds of fish that like in the texture. Instead, it will be the same image but just flipped around. So this might be better for the code optimization. This might be better for dynamic. I don't actually know the name, but it's easier for maintenance, and we can just easily change the image down here. Okay. That aside, moving back to the enemy, we we are adding a texture, and if we only need to change it when we are moving when we're moving towards the right. So that's why if we're on the left side, we will set the facing direction to the right, and we will have it to move the right, to move right and look right. This is the reason why I decided to use a constant, because we are going there are multiple cases we are going to be using the set texture, so I defined a constant right. This makes it easier for us to manage the code, and if we do decide to update the images, we can simply just change it up here. This, however, is not about the direction it looks. This is about changing the speed of the enemy. We want the enemy to be either to move it. Well, I set it to between 1 and 5. That means that there are fishes that are faster than player, and there are fishes that are slower than player. And we would do this by just using random.randint. 1 and 5 are inclusive, and times it by the side. So not much change. We just this is the previous version. We have it times 4, but now we just make it a random number. Nothing else is changed. And let's run it and take a look. Now, as you see, fishes are moving at different speeds. Fishes are looking in different directions. That means everything is working. Well, obviously the characters improves. So. Next. What do we have here? Okay. Take a look at this while I put it in the. I created a paste. All right. That's probably like 20-second. Probably not long enough, but let's talk about it. So right now, we will only spawn in one wave of fish. There are no repeats in the spawning, so 5 fish and we're done. So in order to change that, we need to do something similar to what we did in the change lanes project. Does anyone recall how we sort of made the cars spawn every so often? Or just if anyone can give a general explanation or hint. Okay. So let's think back to how we did change lanes. We are we create a function to store the total amount of time that the program has run, and we are checking if it's 6 seconds before the last spawn. And how we could do that is let's see here. Let's create two variables, the elapsed time and the last spawn. So elapsed time is how long the program had been running. Last spawn is when was the last time they spawned. After creating that, let's delete. Well, let me show you on this side. Let's delete this for loop so that we don't need this clumsy spawn for loop anymore, because we'll be doing it in update. I want the fishes to spawn every second. So how we would do that first by changing the stuff to elapsed, adding the elapsed time to the delta time. So every single time that delta, so like every single time update is called, the delta time will be added to elapsed time, and so we know how long the program has been running. Here we are checking if it is like here we're checking if it's 1 second past, like if we have, oh, this is nonsense, we don't need this. I don't think we need this. Okay, I think this should be enough. Okay, well, I guess this is just, I'm just gonna show what it does right now. So what do we have here? We are checking if, well, I guess what did I have? So over here, I'm checking if elapsed time mod 1 is 0. However, this makes nonsense because every single integer mod 1 is 0. Everything can be divided by 0. That's why I removed it. So I'm just checking if last spawn is equal to this equal to now. So last spawn is basically a number. It's a number that's stored of like when the last time you spawn an enemy, and if this is not the same time. So okay, an explanation of why we need the last spawn is because we're using the int, and if you know anything about games, that there are something called FPS, frames per second. Delta time is storing how long it is like between now and the previous frame. So that's why when we so it's very small, like in arcade it's about 1/60th of a second. So if we just so if we use int, then this number, we would actually be spawning 60 instances every second instead of 1 every second. This is so that's why we are using int. That's why we have a variable that's stored when's the last time that it's being spawned, and if it's 1 second past the last time we spawned, then we will be spawning another one. After that, we will update the last spawn to what we have right now, and we will create an enemy. Well, while we are here, recall that in the change things, we have something that regulates when enemies should be deleted. Well, over here, what do we have? We have a for loop that traverses through that looks at every single enemy. We're checking if the enemy is outside of the enemy is left, like is past the spawn area, like either left or right. If they are past past the border and the spawn area, that means that they are like basically they're safe to be deleted. And then we just use enemy.kill to remove that enemy. That's the code. Let's see it in action once more. So we are spawning. Well, if you take a look, if you count it out, it's 1 second between each spawn. The fishes, whenever they're out of the screen, they are deleted because of this for loop. And we are done with the enemies for now. Well, we aren't really done with the enemies, but done with the basic spawning mechanics. Now let's add some variety to the spawn rate of this fish, of the fishes, the enemies. I'll call it the enemies. I'll leave it here. Per usual, I'll put it in the chat. And I'll take it. Okay. What do we have here? Nothing on top of here, something over here. What is this? Several Korean down. Let's ignore this for now because looking at a variable doesn't tell you too much. But the general purpose of this step is to modify the spawn rate while as the game progresses, so making the game harder and harder, and yeah, basically increasing the difficulty of the game. Let's modify the spawn rate. So on update, we will be checking if I don't need this. Okay, what do we have here? If the if the last time we increased, sorry. Okay, so if it is 1 second past our last spawn, that means that it's no longer the same time, like same second before the speed increases happens. Then if the it's been 300 seconds is a little long, but let's make it 30, I guess. 30 might be a little short. 60, I suppose. This is, I'll mention that later. So this is basically saying, like, is it being 1 minute? Like, is it at 1 minute mark, like at each minute mark? If it is, then we will increase the spawn rate by 1. So, that's why self.createNum is the spawn rate. So I couldn't think of a better name. I guess spawn rate would be a better name, but I'm just not gonna change it. You would add it by 1, so that means that 1 more fish, that there are going to be 2 fishes. 2 fishes spawning every second now. What I've just done here, 300 to I modified 300 to 60. This is I guess another important part of the creating games. That is, how difficult should you make the game? Should you also in so in this case, I'm deciding that difficulty should be increased every single every single minute, and it should be increased very gradually. However, in this case, I am consciously choosing the difficulty to increase every minute to make sure that the game doesn't get too boring, because 300 seconds is honestly way too long for a game, for difficulty increase. So this is what you have to take into consideration when you're writing your own game. That is, I said before, but I'm gonna repeat it. So how difficult, or how should the game be paced? So since Hungry Fish is quite a fast-paced game, I suppose I'm gonna make it pretty short, 60 seconds, but maybe there are games that are slower paced, and maybe you should modify those mechanics accordingly. Well, since we have the create num here, let's actually have it create multiple instances. And we will do this by simply adding a for loop. We're gonna we're gonna repeat the spawn like the create the number of times that like how many like we'll repeat however many times we want the number of fishes to be spawned in a second. That's very that don't make a lot of sense, but I hope you get my point. So after maybe 3 minutes, there will be 4 fishes spawning at a second, and so self.create num will be 4, and you will repeat 4. You spawn 4 enemies at a time now. Just to see this in action, I'm gonna modify this a little bit. So let's increase it by 5. So every second, spawn rate will increase by 5. As you can see, there are fishes are spawning faster and faster. That was not a good example. Let's make that larger. 100. Huh. Let's. Sorry, I think that might be a bug. Oh, sorry, what's that?
Can you run the game right now? Yeah, thanks.
Oh, sorry, I just closed it, but what's going on? Why is this not spawning? Sorry, give me 1 second. Some live debugging right now. I was not expecting this when I came. Oh, definitely. Oh, I'll figure this out after class, but that was a very awkward bug. It should not have happened. I apologize for the inconvenience. Okay. Well, so the idea of it is that it will be the time elapsed will be like every 60 seconds, the difficulty is going to be increased by 1. So oh, I know why it's not running. So this thing, sorry, this will have to be the self-elapsed time actually have to be put before this modification, because in here we have changed the elapsed time. And actually, before I just start rambling, I'm gonna check if it's working, and if it is, I'll be very happy. Okay, yeah. As you can see, more and more fishes are, yeah, that's closing out before it just completely breaks my computer. Okay, so that's I guess that's another lesson to be learned from that mistake. That is, make sure that your number, like, make sure to, like, 2 lessons, I guess. Make sure one, to like work through your logic of the code, and for like constantly changing variables, make sure that the order of them makes sense and or to actually function. The second one is that to test if something works, make it change a lot, and then in very short amount of time, so you can actually observe the differences. So what went wrong in that part, I guess? Here's what's going on. So spawn time, seeing in here, if it is different, then we'll set it to different, set it to the same, we'll set the last spawn to this current spawn. Well, what's wrong with that, you might be asking? We are only changing this, well, we had it here. So we were only changing the elapsed time after we check if they're equal. But however, if they are equal and if they are different, we would have set it to the same thing. Like, we would have made them the same, so that when the function is called again, because we already set them to equal, this part would never actually be true. So you would always return false and never actually increase difficulty. But once you have moved the change time to up here, after setting it to the same, and but you would modify it right afterward, and you will be now it would now sometimes return true. Okay, that was not a expected bug, but I think that was for the best. Let's take a look at who do we have here. Okay, let's now actually implement changing the enemy fish size. By size, I mean, did I skip E? No, by size, I mean changing. So this game, well, the basic function logic of this game is that different fishes represent different sizes. So bluefish is the biggest. It's a size of 8. Well, I think it is. Then it's purple fish, size of 6. Yellowfish, I mean greenfish, size of 4. And yellowfish, size of 1 or 2, I don't remember. So there is a rank. There's a rank. So yellowfish smaller than greenfish, smaller than purplefish, smaller than bluefish. So you would detect if you lose or win by checking if your fish, like your player fish, is larger than the enemy fish. If it is, that means that you ate it. If you didn't, that means if you are smaller, that means you lost. So that's why we need an implementation of the size system. So different sizes, different fishes represent different sizes. Oh, my bad. It's 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. So yellow fish are the smallest of 1, green fish is size 3, red fish size 5, purple fish size 7, blue fish size 9. So that means that when your fish is size 2, you can eat yellow fish, but you will be eaten by all the other 4 fishes. So yes, Sophie.
Okay, can you go back to the player's fish? The player fish.
Yeah, that's a player
No,
fish.
it's 2. Okay.
Oh yeah, I'll put the code in the chat like now, so don't worry about it. Ignore the last slash. I just accidentally put it in. Let me see which part's more important. Okay. I'm not gonna leave too much time to for you guys to take a look. Also, I'm not leaving a lot of time for you to ask questions. I am aware of that. I just what my thought is that you would just ask it whenever you have any questions. So let's take a look at this player size. Let's take a look at this first, actually. So we need a way to correspond fish with its size. How's that done? Well, the easiest way is to use something called a dictionary. So a dictionary is, well, just like a real life dictionary. You would have a word and you would have some definitions along with it. So in Python, a dictionary has a key and a value. So a key would be something before the colons, and the value will be something after the colon. You would define it with curly brackets, commas in between, colons between the value and the key. There can only exist one key, each key needs to be unique in the dictionary. However, each value can be the same. Let's take a look at a easier example, I guess. Let's do pizza and the price, just because I'm kind of hungry and I do want some pizza. So, sure, that was not what I was.
What are you doing now?
Oh, this is a. I'm just trying to demonstrate.
I will not type this down.
Don't type this down. It's just it's just a demonstration of what dictionaries are, and feel free to just take a look at it and don't do anything. Don't write it down. How much should it be? Let's do 9.99.
Spelled prize, like a prize you get at the fair.
Price. There you go. Okay, what do you have here? So this is, I think this is a great demonstration of what a dictionary is. So you have a key and a value. The value can be almost anything, I'd say. It could be a string, it could be a list, it could be a integer, it could be a double, or a float. It could be anything. It could also be a dictionary. Well, I'm not gonna go into it too much, but they can contain multiple types of values. So you would call a value in the dictionary something like a list, I guess. But instead of putting in an index, you would put in something. You would put in the key. So here is what we have. You see, if we want to know what type of crust this pizza is, it's a thick crust. So there we have it. If we want to know the price, I suppose it will be $9.99. Okay. How would you well, I'm just gonna go and talk about it. You probably won't be using it. So how would you modify a value in key? In dictionary? Simple. You would set, just like in lists again, sort of. Instead of putting in the index, you would put in the key and you would set the value to something else. So now if I print out what type of crust piece I have, it's gonna give me a suggestion. No, it's not. So crust. Now it's a thin crust. All right, that might not be exactly useful. What if we want to know every single key of the dictionary? Well, Python has a built-in function called dictionary.keys. This would print out every single key in the dictionary. And what about values? Well, same thing. If you want to know the values, just simply print out the values. However, this is not actually a list. So this is a special type called Dict Values or Dict Keys. They are not equivalent of lists, but you can do most of the things like lists. So let's take out the first index. Oh, it gives an error because it's not a list actually. So we can make it work like a list by just simply converting it to a list. And by converting to a list, we now have the first value or keys I really want. So I guess that's the basic introduction of dictionaries. It's a data type that we didn't cover in the previous in the previous lessons, but since we used it here, I'll just cover it. Okay, let's go back to the dictionary. Right here, we are using the images as the key, the size as its value. Then we need to modify this. We modified this, the fish creation part a little bit. So we are creating, we just basically broke the previous code into smaller chunks. First, we create a fish with a random list with a random choice in the list of fish images. And since we are using the dictionary, now we're using dot keys to get a list. We then convert into a list to make sure we have a list of the keys, list of the files we need, I suppose. And we will set the size by basically using the key to find the value. Then we will create an enemy. And after that, we will set the enemy size to the size of the fish. And then we will append it to the enemy list. So this is some prep work for later on when we check for who eats who. And for the players, we would have a initial size of 2. For Bowen in the chat, you would be running Python space hungry fish.py in your terminal. If you're using Replit. If you aren't using Replit, just click the wherever the run button is in your console in your editor. Let's see this in, well, you can't actually see anything in action. It still doesn't, nothing actually changes, but we just added a new value to our fish. Here, I don't remember if I sent out the previous link, but here is, I'll just put a new one here. Sorry, one. Sorry, let me find a good location to post it. Put it here. Okay, I'm gonna pause it here. I'll take a look at this code. I'll put it in chat, and I'll take a look at it. Okay. Let's take okay, sure. So let me take a look at what I wrote. Okay. We need a way to okay. So let's ignore this top part first. I'll talk about it later. Let's take a look at this part. What do we have here? Here. I was looking at the wrong place. Okay, we have hit list arcade.check for collision with the list of player, blah, blah, blah. So what this does is, remember from change lanes previously, we have check for collision with the list, basically checks if your if two objects hits the, so like if the player hits with the enemy, and then we will store it in a hit list. The hit list is well, it's going to store whatever objects, whatever players, whatever sprite that's in this list that hit with this with self.player. So we first check by checking if if there's anything in the hit list. If nothing is in the hit list, that means there's no hit, like there's no collision. Sorry. If there's something in the hit list, then for all the every single hit in the hit list, we will check if the self.player.size is greater than the enemy size. If it is, that means that our player just ate the fish, and that if that's the case, we will remove the fish, remove the enemy fish. However, if it is smaller, that means that that means that we are eaten and that we are dead. So if that's the case, then we will just kill our own player. All right. However, if I actually just run this right now, it wouldn't be very good of a code. So what we would have is that we would have our player, although we would the code wouldn't actually the game wouldn't actually stop when we end our player, when we kill our player. So we would be storing the player in a player list. So a player list is just a player. We use sprite list because it gives us more control to the sprites within, and it gives us some additional functions that can be used. So we'll be adding it to a list, and that's what this is for. And then we modify it to we modify it to self.player list.draw instead of self.player.draw, and we update our player by using self.player list.update. And that's it. So right now, as you can see, I can eat the small fish, smaller fishes, because my size is 2. And remember that the yellow fish is a size of 1. Oh, sorry, I didn't pay attention, but sure. 1 second. As you can see, the fish, you can actually eat the fish. However, you can actually get eaten by the other fishes. The red one, as you can see, my fish is just now gone. The red one is a size of 3 or 7. I don't remember. The red one is a size of 5. That means we are smaller than theirs, and that's why we are dead, basically. However, this is not the end product yet. So let's run this game again. Once we're ready, oh, the game is still running. How do we fix it? So that's when our next step comes in. I'm not sure I'll be having any time, so I'll leave that for tomorrow, not tomorrow, next week. So let's again go over what we have done today. We have created a hungry fish. We initialized the window. We implemented a character. We added movements to the character, including learning about how to load textures, like different textures to the fish. And we randomly generated some enemies. We implemented a method. We implemented game difficulty into our games. That the difficulty will be increasing every so often. We added enemy fishes. We added random spawning. We added the basic system of eating or get eaten. So what we need to implement, what we still need to implement is that ending the game, pausing the game, or restarting the game. Also including a way for us to level up and evolve into bigger fishes. Okay, someone left, but that's okay. But that's our future steps. If possible, we can also add in some sounds. Well, that's depends on if we have time, but that will be it for today. And thank you for joining. Have a nice week and rest of the day. I'll see you next week with if everything goes correctly.
Can I please stay after class? Because I want to make sure I got everything and I want to understand what this means because this was too much to me at once.
Sure, go ahead. Let's wait for the others to leave, I suppose.
Oh, wait. I can wait as long as I can.
All right, sure. Do you want to share your screen or?
Yeah. Can I make sure I got everything? Like, I want to make sure I got everything.